Let's talk about you. No, not the you sitting comfortably in the future, but the real you. The you that was born in the year of our Lord 640, in the damp green misery of County Meath, Ireland. Your father was a man of some local importance, which is to say he owned more cows than his neighbors. He was a cattle lord, a bear, and his greatest asset was land. His greatest problem was you. You were his fourth son. A biological rounding error. A surplus mouth in a world of perpetual scarcity. There was no land for you, no inheritance, no future as a man of any consequence. So, your fate was sealed not by divine will, but by simple, brutal arithmetic. You were to be a gift to the church. A tithe paid in flesh and bone to balance the family books and maybe, just maybe, buy your father a slightly better spot in the next life. Your calling wasn't a whisper from God. It was a cold, pragmatic business decision made over a cup of sour milk. You remember watching your brothers, their hands calloused from learning the spear and the shield. They were being taught how to take a life. You were handed a wooden stylus and a wax tablet. You were being taught how to erase your own. The sting of that separation, that quiet casting out, was your first real lesson in theology. It taught you that you were different. It taught you that you were less. Your childhood ended at the age of 7. They call it the age of reason, which is a fine joke, as if you had any say in the matter. You were delivered to the stone gates of Clonard Abbey, a place that specialized in manufacturing saints from the raw material of unwanted children. This was your crucible, the place where the unmaking of you would begin. The first tool of your transformation was the cold, an eternal, seeping dampness that lived in the stone walls and crept into the marrow of your bones. Your thin wool habit was a pathetic defense, a single layer of scratchy piety against the endless chill. The second tool was hunger. You fasted constantly, not out of devotion, but as a method of control. A perpetually empty stomach erodes the will, leaving only a hollow space for obedience to fill. The third tool was monotony. Hours upon hours spent in the frigid chapel, chanting Latin psalms. The words were a meaningless drone, a sacred noise designed to sand down the edges of your thoughts until all that was left was a smooth, compliant surface. You remember falling asleep once during the pre-dawn vigil. The exhaustion was a physical weight, heavier than any sin. The abbot's punishment was swift and silent. A dozen strokes with a thick leather strap that left you with a profound understanding of God's love. It felt remarkably like his contempt. They were stripping you down, piece by piece. Your name was replaced with a saint's. Your memories of home were discouraged as worldly attachments. Your natural boyhood impulses were labeled as temptations from the devil himself. You were being systematically hollowed out, your personality scraped away like mud from a boot. All of this, they told you, was a privilege. It was the path to becoming a peregrinus pro Christo, a pilgrim for Christ, a romantic, heroic title for what was essentially a spiritual exile. The gilded lie was that you were an adventurer for God, a scholar warrior marching into the pagan darkness to bring the light. The truth began with the journey. The sea was not some majestic highway to glory. It was a gray, churning nightmare. You spent weeks huddled in a curragh, a flimsy basket of wicker and cowhide, drenched in salt water, bilge, and the vomit of your fellow holy men. You arrived on the shores of Francia not as a conquering hero, but as a half-drowned rat, stinking and shivering. And speaking of stinking, let's discuss your new reality. Hygiene was a concept that had been abandoned centuries ago. You stank. Everyone you met stank. The air in every hut and hovel was thick with the aroma of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, wood smoke, and low-grade despair. Lice were not a nuisance. They were your constant, crawling companions, a sign of your humble station. Your diet was a monotonous procession of gruel. Thin, watery oat gruel in the morning, and if you were lucky, slightly thicker gruel in the evening. On a feast day, you might get a chunk of hard, black bread and a boiled turnip. It was a diet designed to keep you alive, but only just. Your health was a constant, low-level crisis. The flux, a watery and debilitating diarrhea, was simply a fact of life. Every scratch from a thorn bush, every small cut, was a potential death sentence, an invitation for infection to set in. This wasn't a holy quest. It was a slow-motion biological catastrophe, and you were living it one miserable, cramping day at a time. You wandered for years, a spiritual vagrant moving through the dark forests of Thuringia. This was the bleeding edge of Christendom, a place where the old gods of the woods still held more sway than your crucified savior. Finally, you stumbled into the territory of a chieftain named Gundobad, a man of impressive violence and profound suspicion. The year is 665. The stakes are elegantly simple. You will convert this barbarian and his people, or you will provide a novel and screaming decoration for the fence around his longhouse. You try the theology first. You speak of sin and salvation, of the Holy Trinity and the eternal grace of God. Gundobad just stares at you, his hand resting on the pommel of his long iron sword. He is not impressed. Your intricate arguments about the nature of the divine are less interesting to him than a curious beetle. Failure is imminent. Your head is already feeling unpleasantly loose upon your shoulders. But then, you notice it. The chieftain's youngest son lies on a pile of furs, his face flushed, his breathing ragged. A fever. And in that moment of terror, a memory surfaces. Not a line of scripture, not a prayer, but a fragment from your discarded childhood. A folk remedy an old woman near your home used to make for fevers, using the flowers of the feverfew plant. She was later accused of being a hedge witch by a priest not much older than yourself. You have nothing left to lose. You find the plant growing near the edge of the forest. You brew the bitter tea, your hands shaking as you present it to the chieftain. He watches you with cold, murderous eyes, but he is desperate. He lets his son drink. The next morning, the boy's fever is broken. It was, of course, a coincidence. A simple piece of herbal medicine. The fever was likely going to break anyway. But to Gundobad, this isn't medicine. It is magic. Your strange, foreign god has proven his power in a way that matters. He has saved the chieftain's bloodline. You haven't won a convert through faith. You've won a patron through a lucky guess and a half-remembered botany lesson. Gundobad grants you a gift. A patch of mosquito-infested, swampy ground that none of his people want. Here, he commands, you will build a house for your powerful god. This is it. The moment your legend is born. A legend founded entirely on a lie. You build your monastery, which is a generous term for a miserable collection of 5-wattle and daub huts that leak when it rains. And it always rains. Your life, the life behind the burgeoning myth of the holy man of the swamp, quickly settles into a soul-crushing routine. You wake before the sun, your breath misting in the freezing air of your personal hut. You pray. You try to teach a few of the chieftain's brutish, uninterested sons the alphabet. Their idea of learning is seeing who can throw a rock most accurately at your head. You spend hours copying manuscripts you brought from Ireland, your eyes burning by the weak light of a tallow candle, your back a permanent arch of pain. You eat your gruel. You pray again. You lie on your straw pallet and listen to the unnerving sounds of the forest, wondering which of the local gods you have offended today. You are more alone than you have ever been in your life. To the local villagers, you are not a man. You are a talisman. They leave you small, pathetic offerings at a safe distance, a dead bird, a handful of withered berries. These are not gifts of love, but of fear. They whisper as you pass. They believe your chanting can turn milk sour or cause a stillbirth. You are their protection against the unknown, and you are also the unknown itself. There is no law here to protect you. The chieftain's favor is the only thing keeping you alive. And his favor is as predictable as a summer storm. One bad harvest, one lost battle, and he may decide your god is no longer a sound investment. Then, one day, a boat arrives. It carries 2 boys from Ireland, no older than 10. Their eyes are wide with terror. They have been sent to assist you in your holy work. You look at their shivering frames, their faces pale with fear and seasickness, and you see yourself all those years ago. It is now your sacred duty to become the abbot, to take these 2 small, frightened children and systematically break them. to beat the hope out of them, to starve their wills, to forge them into the same hollow, obedient tools that you have become. The cycle is now complete. You are no longer just the victim of the machine. You are now its operator. 20 years you spend in that swamp. 20 years of damp clothes and hollow prayers. Your collection of huts is still a collection of huts, just with more moss. It is a summer afternoon, sticky and oppressive. You are supervising your 2 monks, now grown men with the same haunted look in their eyes as you, as they try to dig a new drainage ditch. It is a task of breathtaking futility. The bog always wins. That's when you hear it, not the familiar shouts of the local villagers. This is different, a sharper, more guttural sound. Men emerge from the tree line. They are tall and fair-haired, with round, brightly painted shields and heavy, bearded axes. You have heard tales of these men, Norsemen, Vikings, the sea wolves who burn and kill for sport. They were always a distant story, a horror for other people in other places. Now they are here, in your swamp, and they are smiling. In that instant, your 20 years of devotion, of prayer, of learning, offer you absolutely nothing. The Holy Trinity does not provide a defense against a charging berserker. Chanting a psalm will not stop a throwing axe. Your faith, the entire architecture of your existence, reveals itself to be utterly, laughably useless in the face of practical violence. You do not fight. You do not make a stand. You do not even cry out to your silent God. You do the only sensible thing. You turn and dive headfirst into the stinking, murky water of the bog you have been fighting for 2 decades. You bury yourself in the reeds and the filth, your heart hammering against your ribs. You listen. You hear the screams of your 2 monks, short and sharp. You hear the splintering of the damp wood of your chapel. You hear the brutal, joyous laughter of the sea wolves as they discover your small cask of communion wine. You stay hidden for hours, submerged in your own cowardice, until the only sound is the crackle of the burning huts and the buzzing of flies. When you finally crawl out, caked in mud and shame, you are greeted by an absolute silence. Everything is gone. The crude altar is smashed. The manuscripts, your life's work, are charred scraps. The bodies of your monks are sprawled in the mud, hacked and broken. You survived. And in that moment, you understand that this is your true damnation. The horror now moves from the outside in. Sleep becomes a new kind of terror. It offers no rest, only recurring visions of the raid, of the axes, of the faces of the men you failed to protect. Their screams become the new soundtrack to your prayers. You begin to talk to yourself, posing theological questions to the empty forest, then answering with bitter, cynical laughter. Where was your God? Where was the divine protection you had been promised for a lifetime of service? The silence from the heavens is no longer a holy mystery. It is an answer. The answer is that nobody is listening. Your guilt is a physical weight. It is the ghost of your own cowardice, sitting on your chest, making it hard to breathe. You wander away from the ruins of your life's work. You find a small trading post on a river, a nexus of scoundrels, merchants, and mercenaries. They have what you need, not salvation, beer. It is rough, sour, and burns the throat, but it works. You trade the small silver cross you wear, the last symbol of your shattered identity, for a full waterskin of the stuff. The numbness it provides is the first moment of peace you have felt since the raid. It is a revelation. Soon, the numbness becomes the new mission. You beg for coins. You perform menial tasks for drunken traders. Your holy robes, once a symbol of your separation from the world, are now just the tattered rags of a local madman, stained with mud and vomit. You have found a new religion, and its sacrament is oblivion. Your final chapter is not written in a hagiography. It is written in the mud of a ditch beside a forgotten track, miles from anywhere that matters. It's late autumn. A miserable, sleeting rain is turning the world to mush. This is your final sanctuary. There is no glorious martyrdom, no final, defiant prayer in the face of a pagan king. Your end comes because of a spilled drink in a squalid riverside tavern. You got into a drunken argument with a merchant's guard, a boy with cold eyes and a cheap sword. He didn't even bother to draw it. He just shoved you. You stumbled backward, your legs tangled, and the world spun. Your head met a jagged rock with a wet, cracking sound. He left you there. That was days ago. The real killer, however, is not the concussion. It's the infected gash on your leg you got weeks ago and ignored. Sepsis has been working its way through your system, a silent, methodical poison. The fall was just the final insult. Your last moments are a fever dream, a chaotic slideshow of a wasted life. You do not see angels or pearly gates. You see the glint of the abbot's eye as he raises the strap. You smell the peat smoke of your family's hut. You see the terrified face of Gundobad's feverish son. You hear the splintering of your chapel door, over and over again. Your last coherent thought is not of God or salvation. It's a dim, confused longing for a sip of clean water. You die alone, in the cold and the rain, a pathetic, forgotten bundle of rags. A local farmer finds your body a week later, already picked at by crows. He mutters a curse about drunks, rolls your stiff corpse into a shallow ditch, and covers it with dirt. No prayer is said. No name is recorded. You simply cease to be. 2 centuries pass. Time grinds on. Empires rise and fall. A new, organized, and politically ambitious church decides to solidify its power in this once barbaric region. And to do that, it needs a local hero. It needs a saint. A scholar digging through old records finds a passing mention of you. An Irish holy man who, according to a local legend, worked a miracle for a chieftain named Gundobad. This is all they need. The pathetic reality of your life is exhumed and immediately discarded. A new story is created, a story full of fire and faith. In this new version, you did not hide in a bog. You stood before the Viking horde, held your cross aloft, and called down God's righteous fury, striking the heathens blind. The 2 monks you let die are now your faithful acolytes, martyred at your side. Your drunken, pathetic end in a ditch is meticulously rewritten. Now you were hunted down by vengeful pagans, finally caught and killed while in the act of prayer, your last words a plea for the forgiveness of your murderers. They find your unmarked, forgotten grave and declare it holy ground. They build a magnificent stone basilica over the site of your wretched, swampy huts. You, the surplus son, the broken tool, the cowardly survivor, the drunken failure who died of a stupid accident and a common infection, are given a new name. Saint Eden the Steadfast. Your name is invoked by the faithful, praying for the kind of courage you never possessed. Your miserable, terrified, and pointless life has been repurposed. It has become a product. A useful, inspiring lie. And that is the final, exquisite, and most terrible joke of all. The story of your suffering was meaningless until it was erased and replaced with a fiction. History isn't what happened to you. It's what they decided to say happened to you. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the truth.